Now, you're going to see this at all levels. You're going to see people who have been doing recovery forever that are having this experience and a feeling of just not caring. And then you're going to have people who just started and they feel like they don't really care. And that not caring can be different things. But if we're going to address the idea of not caring or lack of investment, we've got to deal with the question of pain. So the reality is that for years and years and years and years and years, however long you've had the addiction, from 6 months to 50 years, you've been responding you've been reacting, living a reactive life. You've been responding to danger. Your survival systems have been taken over for whatever the medication is. In the case of the guys I work with, it's sexual addiction, some unwanted sexual behavior, and and so there's this constant refrain in you to live from fear. And that living from fear motivates basically everything. Like, it motivates your acting out, which is like using your medication, but it also motivates a sort of acting in, which is preparing you for the downfall that leads to acting out again. This process is as I said, fear driven. And that's what we think is normal. We think it's normal to react constantly to fear and live out of these, just response cycles. So at the end of the day, for a guy that's beginning in recovery, he's going to have to experience enough pain that his responses naturally lean into changing. Now, this is a difficult concept for me because I personally, I want people to be able to change without having to experience all the horror that can come from their addiction making their life fall apart. But the truth is, a lot of people, they just can't get there. Usually because they're not being honest enough. They're not being honest enough to allow the pain to come up from whatever suffering they have experienced. Because of that, most people need a shock to the system to get them out and doing what they're supposed to do. This was certainly true for me, and it's true for a lot of people. It's not, I'm not mad at those people. I just wish they didn't have to go through it. So, because our body understands pain, I need to increase that pain in order to be motivated to do it. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You might, if you're feeling really apathetic and that sort of thing, feel free to grab out a piece of paper and write down all the stuff you lost. Write down all the things that are wrong and terrible about your addiction. You're going to get a giant list of consequences, of pain, okay? And that's okay. Like, yeah, look at that. Understand it. Be like, wow, this is really terrible. Like, that's motivating, for sure. But there's another thing that we need to work on. You see, as we experience that external pain, we can become kind of inoculated to it. The pain that was really painful yesterday isn't as painful the next day. So we can't just live a life out of fear. Like, we can't live from fear in recovery. So we have to transition to something else. Now, guys who are far along in their recovery journey and are still struggling and feel kind of apathetic, these guys often never made this transition. So let me tell you what the transition is. It's to a different kind of pain. So we've got the pain of like consequence and the reality of, what addiction creates and that suffering. But then we have the pain that's created from conviction. The reality of looking at ourselves next to Jesus and being like, wow, I'm not awesome. I am not awesome. But conviction is not just being like, man, I suck. It's actually being, I want to be good. I want to be good. I value goodness, right? And so we look at Jesus, who is good, and I want to be like that, okay? That's conviction. It's that thing that comes up inside of us and goes, oh, I'm convicted to act like that. I have this passion, I have this guttural need to be like that. And we're often convicted, and we can turn that shameful. We totally can. And I am using the term a little bit, I think we can see conviction coming from things that might not be super positive. But there's also this positive conviction, which is the living for good. Okay, that's a transition that we need to make as we're moving on in our recovery. And unfortunately, a lot of people who don't attend to their spiritual side, they ended up not making this transition. What they'll do is they'll just make behavioral change in themselves. And that behavioral change, because it's not based in their heart, they don't have the sense of renewal, right? And so either they end up with a lowered form of their same acting out, or they switch acting out to a different medication. Whatever the case, if you want to kill apathy, if you want to get motivation, then we need to do one of two things. We got to increase the reality of consequential pain, or we have to increase the reality of conviction pain. And there are many ways to do that, but the difference is upping your conviction pain is about love. And it's not reactive. It's something you have to proactively do. You have to proactively fall in love with Jesus, fall in love with his character, his person. You have to go learn about God and love that. Now, I will say, it's not that there's no responses or no reaction, because as we learn about God, we're going to be like, wow, he's awesome, and there's going to be this sense of wanting that. But your body is not going to be like, hey, I really want to, like you heard me confess, like I got an overeating thing. My body is not going to say, I don't want to eat today. I gotta tell it, no, I love the good. I love the good, so I'm going to eat only what I'm supposed to, And so that's how that works. The body's going to continue to drag us towards rebellion, and we have to be convicted enough, be so full of love enough for the good that we act differently. We can call that setting a vision. We can call that, the recognition of something better than our addiction. But that better is not the same kind of better. It's that love conviction. Okay.